Hello and welcome to the video, you crazy people. My name is Jay and today I'm going to be showing you how to make modular trenches suitable for something like Star Wars Legion and Hoth, but you could use them for other kind of trenches, like, you know, maybe Crait if you wanted to texture them all up like that. But in this video I'm going to be showing you not in this video, I'm going to be doing two different ways of making these. The first way is a traditional way using like traditional materials, styrofoam, chipboard and stuff like that, and you can see these are the kind of pieces I'm talking about. They'll go together like that and form a trench line. Obviously the more you make, the kind of trench line you have, like the bigger the trench line you have. But as you can see here is the 3D printed version of it, and I'll be doing a different video just showing them off, and you'll be able to click I think it's just there. So hopefully that'll work. But as I said, this one's more like the traditional method, not the 3D printed method. And we'll be making probably 4 different pieces, which I think you can pretty much do everything with. So we're going to make a straight like this. We'll make an end piece like this. Or, well, I'll do one, but you should obviously you'll need at least a minimum of 2. Because it's white, it's very bright. But you can see how that's an end piece to that. Oh, I've got a bit of white paint on me because I just tried to titivate it up. We'll also be doing a 45-degree angle turn, which in theory, if you wanted to do like 2 straights, a full 90-degree turn, you would need 2 of them. And then the interesting piece, there'll also be this sort of like 3-way junction. You could in theory make a 4-way junction. I've just done a 3-way, so you know you can see it'll come off so bright. It'll come off this way, and that way. The materials you need actually really cheap. I'll try and put some links below. You'll need blue foam. Now the foam I'm using is 2 centimeters thick. I got it as like floorboarding. There's a company on eBay that just sells out single sheets. So I paid like £10 for it. Massive sheet though, you could do loads. I used chipboard for the base. Now you could probably use other stuff, but preferably somewhere between 1 and 2 mil. Somewhere between 1 or 2 mil. 3 mil would be a bit thicker, but you could do it. So if you've got your old EPVC plastic base, you could use that. And yeah, let's get in and I'll actually just show you what I did, and we'll see how it all worked. The maths of it, I'll try and maybe put like an annotation on screen, because the main thing here is that you're consistent with your measurements, especially, you know, like your end pieces. So you want this end piece to match this end piece so they go together nicely. If you do that, you'll be okay pretty much. So anyway, let's show you how it's done. So here's just the materials. We've got the styrofoam. You'll need a long sharp knife, not a serrated blade, but like a long like Stanley knife. You'll need a pen, a Stanley knife, a metal ruler, or just a ruler. And I'm using chipboard, but you could use something else for that. And then we're going to go with the measurements. Now, from the measurements, it can be a bit tricky. So I use 10 centimeters wide, but only 7 centimeters long. And you might be like, what do you mean by that? Well, so the thing is, with the width of it, you're going to have your slopes on them, you know, the edges of the trenches. So it seems like it's way wider than it is long, but it actually works out being fine for me. If you're unhappy with those measurements, do feel free to change them. As long as you're pretty much consistent, it won't matter too much. So yeah, so I cut out a 10 centimeter by 7 centimeter piece. And then once I've done that, what I do is I mark where my styrofoam's going to be. Now I've decided what I'm going to have. I'm going to have a 2 centimeter square slope. So, you know, that's the 45-degree angle with a 0.5 centimeter straight. So basically the width of my side pieces are 2.5 centimeters. Now you can do anything you like though. You don't need to have the straight bit on top. You don't necessarily need to have it at 45 degrees. Do whatever the hell you like. But here I thought it's a nice little like measurement. This is 2.5 on each side, leaving a 5 centimeter gap in the middle. Now, if you want me to like write that down for you in the comments or something, do let me know. Once I've drawn that on, then what we need to do, we need to cut out the styrofoam. Now the styrofoam here should be 7 centimeters long and 2.5 centimeters wide. Does that make that? I hope that makes sense. So the 2.5 centimeters is half of it will be straight, and then the 2 centimeter will have like a diagonal line through it, and then that'll be the slope angle. So yeah, you just cut that out, and when you're cutting that out, it's a little bit tricky to do straight lines unless you've got like a hot wire cutter, but I'm not rich enough to have a hot wire cutter, so that's just the way it goes. To try and keep it straight. It doesn't matter too much in this because we're going for like natural looking ground anyway, so like pristine angles aren't really necessary. So I cut out 2 of those, just dry fit them to make sure, you know, it's vaguely within your lines that you've drawn. If it's not, you know, just remeasure them and check that you're actually vaguely correct. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw on my 1/2 centimeter line. So I just pick like the side with the straightest edge for the inside track because that's the line that you'll see. So I marked on my 1/2 centimeter like flat edge, and then draw a diagonal line from the like the corner to your to your 1/2 centimeter thing. Hopefully you can see that better on the screen here. I'm like showing you what color, like I color it out and stuff like that. Quite hard to describe. I might put an annotation on screen to like explain that a little bit better. So then you've got to cut it out. Now cutting this out can be quite tricky because it's quite thick. Apparently a little simple tip here is to try and heat up your blade. That'll help it go through it, but obviously I'm doing it on camera, so I don't have that luxury of running to the cooker and doing it like that. But yeah, you just want to slice down the line that you've drawn, and you'll end up with the piece that is basically going to form the base of all of our sides. And it'll have like it'll be flat on the inside, 1/2 centimeter flat, and then a slope down to the edge of the shade that you cut out. And you basically do 2 of those. And there you can see me dry fitting it, and it actually, like, that's pretty much right. It doesn't really matter too much that there's a little bit of, you know, board showing underneath or anything, because we're going to put filler on it anyway. You can always buff up areas or, you know, sand areas if you need to. But as long as your edges are correct or near enough, it'll look fine once you glue it together. So when we're ready to glue it on, I'm going to use hot glue. Just put some on the base and glue it on. You could use PVA if you wanted. I just don't like waiting, so hot glue is my answer here. It's just hot glue straight on the board, glue it in. If you need to reposition your lines or anything, that's fine. You might have some gaps of the board showing underneath because maybe the way you cut it was a bit wonky. It doesn't really matter as long as your start and your end, like triangle area, is correct. So you can see here I had a bit of an overhang, so I actually just shaved that off. Not really a problem. I've got a bit of the board showing, but I'm not worried about that because I can always like buff it up with the filler at the end. I mean, you can see, well, that's pretty much the straight piece done. Like all the cutting's done for the straight piece after that, and you can see it looks pretty fine. For the end piece, you pretty much replicate the exact same thing, so I'm not going to bother showing you. You cut out the exact same shapes, and you do the exact same board, so it pretty much looks exactly like a straight piece. Once you've glued that together, you'll end up with 2 of the exact same thing. Once you do that, what I did is I marked about halfway through it, so I did like 3.5 centimeters along it and just put a little line on it. That's basically going to be the start of where my slope is. Then I drew a line sort of to the edge. Now you don't need to be exact here, but then basically you're just going to shave off the bit that you just drew, so it basically looks like it just blends in with the turf. You could do it, you know, curved or whatever I like just this very simple flat line to the edge. Do it on one side, do it on the other side, and boom, you've got your end piece. Looks pretty fine to me. There you go, you got your straight and your end piece. In theory, you could make a trench line with just those 2 pieces, but obviously we're going to try and spice it up a little bit more. So for the next piece, we need a 45-degree wedge. Now that can be a little tricky if you've not got a protractor, and I didn't have a protractor, so what does one do? Anyway, we know when we're doing this 45-degree wedge that our width of the whole trench line is 10 centimeters. So we know on one straight line we need a 10 centimeter edge, and then we know we need a 45-degree angle. Now I just used the 45-degree angle here on my mat. You could in theory get a protractor and mark out a 45-degree angle. That would be fine. However, there is a trick you can do with a piece of paper. If you measure out like a square on the paper, you could actually fold the paper to create like a 45-degree angle, or well, cut it out and create a little 45-degree angle. And you'll see here that the paper measures up against the line that I already drew. Now, you only need to like put marks on the base here and then draw it with a ruler. You wouldn't necessarily need to use the paper as a ruler. That would be a bit mental. So there are ways of getting a 45-degree angle if you don't have a protractor. Then what you want to do is along your straight 45-degree angle, your straight line, which is at a 45-degree angle, you want to measure 10 centimeters because that's the width of the whole trench line, and we want to keep that consistent. Then you just, get the two ends together, so your bottom 10 centimeter line versus the top 10 centimeter line, and draw a straight. Done. You can see I actually did two cutouts here. You can just do the same on the other side. Once you've already got your 45-degree angle, not a problem. Cut that out with your pen knife with your Stanley knife. And you can see here, as I just dry fit it up, it looks fine. It looks like that will be a perfect fit. Then we do the same thing with drawing on our 2.5 centimeter lines. We know that the sides of the trenches are 2.5 centimeters on each side, so we can literally just put a straight line between the two. So on one side you do 2.5 and then 2.5, and then on the other side you do 2.5 and then 2.5. Then you connect them up with straight lines. Boom, that's where the edges of your trenches should actually connect. So now the tricky bit is getting the angles for these, because these aren't actually going to be the exact same angle as the others, just because there's some weird mathematical reason behind that, and I don't actually fully understand it. But all we really need right now is a long piece that is 2.5 centimeter by the 2 centimeter height, and then just measure off like a little cube that'll fit in the bottom part of it, the really small section at the narrowest point. Then do the same for the top part of it, or like the wide section of the trench line. And then this is where it can get a little bit tricky, because what we need to do is we draw on our 0.5 centimeter straight bit on it, and then we also need to cut the line of the trench wall so it's the exact same shape as the base. So just all I did was just put my ruler, and I put it in place and then put my ruler over it and just drew a straightish line. It's not possibly ideal, but it does work. Do the same on each side, and then cut out the sliver so it's the right shape. And then what we want to do the same thing we did for the straight pieces, which is basically from the 0.5 centimeter line, draw it to the bottom corner. Now it's either the bottom right corner or the bottom left corner, depending on which way you're looking. And it won't be the exact same angle that we've had previously. So it's a bit of a problem, but it's not too hard to draw it on. It's more harder to cut it out, because cutting it out you need to somehow slice it down, but none of the angles are actually straight for you to put it on the table. So it's a bit awkward to do on camera. But it is actually an awkward thing to do. So you'll notice here that I don't actually end up with a really nice smooth piece, but I'm not really too worried because I'll just fill it up with filler at the end. For the shorter wedge of the 45-degree angle, just probably better gluing that in, I think. So I think what I did here is I just glued it down, drew on my 0.5 centimeter straight part at the top, then I drew on the line from the 0.5 centimeter line to the bottom corner again, and then just tried to shave it all down. Shave it by shape it to the wedge angle, of course, so it's at the actual 45-degree angle, and then you want to shave off the the trench area so it's got the right slope. And then that's pretty much that, but it's quite complicated to explain, so I'm not sure if I did a great job. If you need any clarification though, then just let me know and I'll clarify that up in text. So I'm really hoping here that the images on the screen does a better job of explaining what's going on than what I'm doing with my words. Finding this quite difficult to properly explain, but hopefully you can actually see it on the screen. So just briefly talking about the 45-degree angle bit, the awkwardness to explain is that you need to get it so that the edges here, the trench walls, are angled both at your cardboard angle, and then this angle here isn't quite the exact same angle before, because it's now, instead of it being like that, it's now like that. So you can see instead of this being like this, how it would normally be, it's now like that. So you need to cut it down here, down here. Then you need to cut it from this 0.5 centimeter bit here to this corner with a blade like that. And it's very hard to do that because you can't just put it on a table and saw through it, which you can do for pretty much all of the others. However, the T-Junction one, that is quite difficult to do. So as you can see here, and if I compare it to the straight, so that you can see on the straight piece here, It's not as big as this other piece. Now, the reason that is because if we're trying to make a T-junction, imagine if you've got a straight, well, this straight needs to connect up on every single edge. Yeah, so having it 7 centimeters long, this wouldn't fit. This would be too short to have this slide in. So basically, in this case, every angle is 10 centimeters. So whatever width you've picked, that's the length of every angle here. If I was doing 15 centimeters wide, every angle here would have to be 15. So this is 10, this is 10, this is 10. It's a 10 centimeter square, and then we'll do our normal straight piece here, and then, you know, we'll do it like this. The only tricky part of this is what happens with these. Now, we know that we need a 5 centimeter gap here, and we know these are 2.5 centimeters long. So, because this is 10, 2.5 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters, 5, then we know we basically need a 2.5 centimeter square. And I'll show you how to make these now. So obviously we cut out the board first. As I said, it's 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Hopefully I just explained that. I drew on my 2.5 centimeter lines just to give myself an idea of what's going on. You don't necessarily need to do that. Then you need, you know, to cut out the foam. That's this is 2 centimeter thick foam, and I'm doing 2.5 centimeter wide foam, but the length is 10 centimeters, and then 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeter cubes. So the length one, that's not a problem. Instead of it being 7 centimeters, it's just 10 centimeters, and you can just whack it and glue it on whenever you're ready. Now the cubes, so we know that it's 2 centimeters like in height, but we know the width and the like breadth or whatever you want to call it is 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. So we need a 2.5 centimeter perimeter, I guess, on each side. And then what we're going to do, we're going to slice through it at a 45-degree angle. That's easy to do, just get it with your pen and slice through it at a 45-degree angle. And then, once you've got your 45-degree angle, then we're going to do the slope. So just dry fit it to make sure it's right. Mark on your 0.5 centimeter straight bits at the top, if that's what you're going to do. And then we're going to do the same thing where we draw from the 0.5 centimeter line to the corner that's going to be where it matches up. Just draw a straight line, and then we're going to slice it out. Hopefully the video here will do a good job of explaining. If you do that on both of your sides, they then should be able to go together with the correct shapeage for the corner. Now you could do that on an outside corner if you wanted as well, but here it's the inside corner. You do that on both sides, and then pretty much you just need to glue it all together, and Bob's your uncle, you're pretty much finished. I covered it in filler because I didn't want to use my snowflock at this point. It's not too hard to do. You could use your snowflock if you wanted and paint it white. I've not done a great job of painting it white, but that's pretty much it. That's pretty much finished. This was hard to explain. This isn't too hard to do, but it is quite hard to explain. If you want a very simple way of thinking about it, then my 3D printed version is up there. Or it can't be because I did it at the start, but the 3D printed version will be in the description below. It should get released at the same time as this. It's not the easiest thing I've ever done. Actually it is easy once you've got your maths and stuff like that. It's just a little bit tricky to like conceptualize that, I think. That's why I did a 3D printed version of it. I actually created the 3D printed version in Tinkercad, which sort of helped me realize what I was going to do. Once you know your maths, it's actually really easy to get these out. Like I could do 5 pieces easily within an hour. And you know, so within like 3 hours, you could pretty much have a whole table's worth of as bigger trenches as you wanted. It's just a case of maths, or math if you're American. This is a weird one. This is a tricky one. I do apologize for putting this out if it's a little bit mumbly and I have no idea what I'm talking about, because it's just a bit hard to explain. Hopefully you've understood it. Hopefully I've done an okay-ish job. If you like the video, do like. If you want to check it out on Tinkercad, I'll be putting a free link up, free for download and that kind of thing. So just check the 3D printed version out. And yeah, I think that's everything. Any questions, do let me know, because I realise this one might be a little bit weird. And yeah, have a most beautiful day. Thank you for watching. Sorry this one's probably a bit longer than usual, and goodbye. Bye guys.